Do you ever want to dive deeper into the Bible, but you just don't know where to begin? Or struggle to feel like you even have the time? When you read the Bible, do you get frustrated because you know there's so much more in there? You just have no clue how to get it out. Or maybe you want to know the Bible better, and you're looking for any resource to help. Then this is a podcast for you. Welcome to the Context and Color of the Bible podcast. We're sisters, and I'm Veronica.
I'm Erika.
And we love to study the Bible, and we love to help others understand it better. When it comes to our own study of Scripture, we have found that in bringing back the context of Scripture, it adds so much to our understanding. It actually adds color to the black and white pages of the text. So, Erika,
Yes.
let's just start off with we both are fighting a cold.
We are. It's that time of year.
Yes, so we might sound a little bit different,
Yeah.
but that's okay.
It's just colds.
Yeah. We are kind of in the Christmas story.
Kind of. Yeah, we are.
We've done 2 weeks.
Yep.
The first week was kind of focusing on just the city of David and Bethlehem and Joseph and Mary. Last week was on like hospitality and all that Mary and Joseph went through.
Right.
This week, though, is a fun one.
Yes, because this family that we're about to talk about, it's really like the Kardashians of the first century.
Okay, because you know who the Kardashians are.
I think so.
I'm kind of impressed.
They're crazy like they're wealthy, crazy
Right. Drama. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what we're getting into.
Right.
So obviously it's not Mary and Joseph,
No.
but you're actually getting into Herod.
Yes.
And I just want to say, I'll say it now and I'll say it again at the end. You actually go into Herod's family
A bit more.
in episode 70 because you talk about Herod's grandson.
Yes.
Okay.
I believe it's the grandson.
If you've listened to Acts 12, it was season 5 when we were doing seasons.
Oh, yeah. We dropped that a while ago.
We did. It got too confusing. But what it is you follow the Herod in Acts. This is the first Herod.
Right. That starts it all.
So it's kind of good even if you've already listened to that one, go back and listen because you go, okay, here's how it started.
Right.
See how it keeps going.
Right.
What kind of traits did he pass down to his family?
Right.
So,
one of these days, we should just do a series on Herod and his family because it's just, they're so...
She likes it.
I
Erika likes the drama.
I do. It's just fascinating.
It's nice when it's not your family.
Yes, this is very true.
So with that, where do you want us? What are we starting with?
Matthew 2. I guess, Ronnie, if you
Yes.
want to read verses 1 through 3.
Okay. Matthew 2. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem, in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him.
Dun, dun, dun. We're going to get into that in just a bit.
Okay.
But first, I want to connect us. Last week, we left at the end of Luke 2, I believe it is.
Yep.
Mary and Joseph go back to Nazareth.
Yes.
But Matthew goes, oh, but wait a minute. There's some more that happens before Mary and Joseph go to Nazareth. So we're going to start picking apart and just adding in color, a lot of color, to Herod and what happens between Mary and Joseph and Herod between this week and next week. So first of all, Herod. He's called Herod the Great.
Yes.
He was like a megalomaniac with a twist.
Okay.
A megalomaniac wants power and money, but Herod also wanted to be adored. The problem is Herod, although king of the Jews, is not Jewish. So Herod is Idumean, which means...
Can you spell that?
Oh, goodness.
Okay,
Idumean, I think. I'd have to see it. Herod comes from the line of Esau. Remember Jacob and Esau? Isaac had twins.
Abraham and Sarah
Yeah.
had Isaac and Rebecca.
Right.
And then Isaac and Rebecca had twins, Jacob and Esau.
Right. And they didn't get along so well.
Yeah, no.
And so Herod actually comes from Esau's line.
Okay.
So he's not Jewish.
But he's related.
There's enough of we remember we're related, but you're not Jewish.
Okay.
Not at all. And so as king of Israel, you want to be Jewish, though, because that's truthfully who God says should be king of Israel is a
Right.
Jewish man. So how did Herod become king of Israel? Well, you had a big backstory I'm not going to get into, but there was a civil war in Israel. You had these two brothers who were both in line for the throne. This is after the Maccabees.
Between Malachi and Matthew.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's the family of David, who were the last royal family, they've kind of been cut off at the knees. They're no longer in positions of power.
Okay.
So a new family comes in and starts to take over, calling themselves king. And they start well, but by this point, you have two brothers. They're fighting. They both want to be king of Israel. Well, one of them calls in Rome.
Yeah.
And Rome is starting to grow bigger and stronger. At this point, they've taken over a lot of land and territory. And Rome was happy to come in and support one of the brothers.
Sure.
And I can't remember the name of the general who comes in and supports one of the brothers. And guess what happens once they support the brother and get him installed on the throne? Guess who really has power then?
Rome.
Rome. Not the brother, but this Roman general. He's a puppet leader now, officially. And these two brothers still cause trouble. So Rome eventually comes in and goes, we're tired of you, bam, and we're going to put our own person on the throne. And this general goes, hey, I've got a son, and I've raised my son up to be a good Roman. He's wonderful. And Herod is his name. And Herod gets put as king, and he's a good politician.
Okay.
He knows how to play Rome really well. And so Herod becomes king of Israel, of Judah, as it's called right now. But Herod has a very tenuous hold because he's not Jewish. So he claims he converts to Judaism. But he's one of those, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So like when he's in Jerusalem, he'll eat kosher, and he'll make sure his staff is, eating kosher and doing things correctly.
Sabbath.
Yes.
Okay.
But when we're in Caesarea, you know what? We're going to party and have fun, and we're going to enjoy whatever food we want, whatever activities we want. We're going to get drunk. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
And everybody knew this about Herod. He was a total hypocrite.
Okay.
Also, because of his tenuous hold and because he wants to be king desperately, anybody that stands in his way, he will get rid of. If he sees you as a threat to his throne, you're in danger. And so Herod, to solidify his kingship in the mind of the Jewish people, besides converting, also marries a Jewish princess.
Let's bring a little bit Jewish in here.
Right. And they have like three or four sons together.
Okay.
Eventually, he puts her to death and her sons to death.
Go figure.
Yes.
Sounds like one of those crazy
Pretty much.
kings.
Pretty much. Because they could have a better claim to his throne than he does. And they don't like that. This Herod also, remember the Sanhedrin?
Yep.
The Sanhedrin, they're like 70 leaders in Israel, and he brings them all together, and he asks them about a verse in the Bible, and I don't remember, I think it's in Deuteronomy. It talks about how your brother should be king over you. And he's like, what does this verse mean? And they're like, well, it means the king of Israel should be Jewish. And that's it. He has them all put to death.
The whole Sanhedrin.
The whole Sanhedrin, except one who was his friend, and he just has him blinded.
Oh.
But he gets to live.
Friendship for you.
Right.
But still, just stop and think I just took out the entire leadership of this nation.
Right.
Because
they answered me in a way I didn't like.
Yeah. Okay. Clearly, he's crazy.
Clearly. And bloodthirsty.
Yeah.
Like he had no problem putting you to death.
Right. No morals.
No morals. Yeah. Married numerous women, had numerous sons. A few of his sons were put to death. In fact, a Roman officer made a joke, like it would be safer to be a pig in Herod's house than Herod's son. Because if you're a pig, he won't eat you because he eats kosher. But if you're his son, he'll put you to death. So everybody knew. But he was a good enough politician. He could still keep Rome happy and keep a semblance of peace in the land.
Right.
He also...
because if you don't keep peace in the land, Rome's going to have to deal with you.
Yes.
So I want to keep Rome content and happy.
Yes.
So I do...
enough to keep people happy. But everybody knows underneath this cruel, wicked, bloodthirsty man. But he had massive building projects. He is the one, he created a port. Israel didn't have actually a port where they could send ships to and from the actual land. He built a port. He had them like create an actual place for ships.
In the Mediterranean Sea.
In the Mediterranean Sea. I think it's Caesarea. He leveled off the Temple Mount and had them rebuild the temple.
He renovated
the temple in Jerusalem, like made it this amazingly huge, beautiful thing. But to do all this, how do you get money? Taxes. So he had to tax the people to have money to build this. They have these massive building programs, but it did employ people. But he had to tax them massively to do it. And he didn't even see the temple finish. It was finished 60 years after his death, 50 years after his death.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he never even lived to see it finished. So he was an interesting man. But he was very multifaceted. But he was very cruel, vindictive, desperate to keep his claim to the throne. At this point in time, Herod is getting older. I think he died just 3 to 4 years after Jesus was born.
Okay.
So Herod, at this point in his life, he's older. He realizes he's coming to the end, but he is still a force to be reckoned with. And he hears, in fact, this is why they think some of the family of David left Bethlehem to get away from Herod to go to Nazareth, because this is the type of man they're dealing with.
Right.
He'll kill us. Yes. And he hears this rumor that these men from the east are coming and they're asking around about a king, the king of Israel. And all of a sudden, you can understand why when Herod is disturbed, the citizens of Jerusalem are disturbed, because you're going, okay, who's going to die now to satisfy this man's thirst for power and his cruelty? So these magi come into town and they're innocently looking for a king. Now, these magi are the priestly class of Persia and Media. People of the ancient world considered them as scholars of the supernatural, astrologers, able to interpret dreams, omens, signs in the heavens. And they're Gentiles. They're watching the stars and they see a new star appear, and somehow they have the understanding this new star tells us there's a king in Israel and we need to go acknowledge this new king. And people wonder, where do they get this idea? Why are Gentile astrologers interested in a Jewish king? We're not really sure.
Okay.
Some people have wondered, remember Daniel?
Oh,
He was high up in the government in the Medes and the Persians, and they wonder if maybe he left writing.
Okay.
Or he was still so held up to high respect that, you know, his opinion, he's Jewish. Hey, there's something special going on. Maybe it's another Daniel.
Okay.
We need to go see.
Okay.
Also,
but they're coming from that area, that region.
Yes.
Okay.
And there is still a good Jewish population in Persia. Maybe they have had influence on these astrologers. But either way, they're coming in. And so where would you go to find the king of Israel?
I would go to the capital.
You go to the capital. You go to Jerusalem. And what I find interesting is why they don't immediately go to the palace.
Right.
Maybe they've heard rumors or picked up enough to go, hey, Herod may not be the easiest one.
Yeah. Walk into his presence carefully.
Right.
He sounds like if I come in and he's in a bad mood, off with your head.
Yes, pretty much.
So I would be cautious.
Right. So they may be hanging around outside trying to figure out.
Right. How do we approach him carefully, get him in the right mood? Are there different seasons or months? Or, That makes sense.
Right. So, but they're obviously asking around enough. Whisper gets back to the palace.
Yeah.
And this man is furious. I mean, how do you think he's going to respond? People from another culture, another country are coming to worship the king of Israel. It's a baby. It's not
Well, and they haven't come to me.
And they haven't come to me.
Right.
What do you expect from Herod at this point?
Not good things.
Right. More heads are going to roll. All right. So Herod is horrified. Another person may have been born to take his place. So who will die this time? But first, he decides to get some information himself. At this point, a new Sanhedrin has been put together.
You think?
Yeah, another group of 70 men. Herod calls them in. I mean, you have to wonder.
Oh, my word. They had to be terrified.
Terrified. You put the last group to death.
Sure. And I would think in a way these are like the understudies.
Right.
You know, we were studying, preparing to take their place
Right.
when they died natural causes.
Right. You hurried that up a bit.
Yes.
And so here we are, Herod. So he calls them in and says, tell me, where's the Messiah going to be born?
Ooh.
Well, that's a loaded question because number one, we're asking a special king. And if I'm not it,
You could kill me.
right. I could put you to death because you gave me an answer I didn't like. But they're honest enough. And they answer, well, according to our scriptures, it's Bethlehem in Judea. That's
Where was Herod born?
I know, seriously. That's where the special king, this Messiah, is going to be born. And then he lets them all go. You got to be like, oh, dodged a bullet that day. And then quietly, he doesn't want to give the Magi any credence to what they're saying. He doesn't want to start any other rumors. It's bad enough they're in town. I don't want to make it look like what they have to say is actually true. So he quietly brings them in. And he's like, hey, I hear you're looking for a new king in town. I'm told he'll be in Bethlehem. I'm like, okay, great, thanks. And he goes, but before you go, I have one small favor to ask of you. When you find this special child, come back and report to me because I have a special gift that I would like to bring to this new king who's going to take my place. So please come back and tell me where you find this child. And they leave. And maybe that's where we should end it.
That's probably a good ending. Because I like is you've taken some of the story we know and you fleshed out that background a little bit more.
A little bit, yeah.
You know, we know. I mean, truthfully, we know Herod has all the babies in Bethlehem.
Right, we know where this is going. 2
and under put to death. Well, now you kind of get an idea of why he did.
Right. This is the man he was.
Yes, this was not just I'm just really mad I'm going to take out.
Right.
He's been shedding blood.
Since the beginning.
Since his whole life.
Right.
And so you get some of this, why Joseph and Mary, when they flee.
Right.
Why they would flee.
Right.
What kind of things have they been thinking
right.
all along? What is just the family of David
right.
been thinking is they've kind of been in like the shadow of that palace in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
I might not want to hang out in Jerusalem or Bethlehem. I might want to get a little bit farther away.
Right.
I look less intimidating.
Right.
You know, I'm not after your job or your position.
Right. I mean, today's world, it's 85 miles from Jerusalem to Nazareth. You could drive it in an hour.
Sure.
A little over an hour.
Sure.
But back then, it was 3 to 4 days walk.
Right.
You know, it's like leaving the suburbs of a capital to move to a small town.
Right.
Hopefully, I just disappear.
Yep.
You forget about me.
Yep.
And now I'm being put back on your radar.
Yes. Yeah. So don't forget, I did say if you haven't listened, Herod's Grandson, that would be episode 70 in our Acts series. Erika basically took Acts 12 and went, you can read it, see what it says. I want to tell you what else is going on.
Right, the behind the scenes,
Yes.
which I think is fascinating.
Which was fascinating. Erika really loves Herod's family.
I do.
She's not going to meet them someday.
Nope.
But she knows a lot about them, so she gets excited about that. But don't forget, we have one more podcast coming up next week.
We have to finish the story.
Wrap up this story, wrap up our little 4-parter series on Christmas. And then in case you don't come back next week, we are taking 2 weeks off.
Right.
Around Christmas and New Year's. It's a great time to be with family. You're busy. If you go, I'm looking for more podcasts, go back, check our Acts series. Erika did mention the Messiah, that word. Yep. She did a whole word study on the word Messiah so you can understand why when that Sanhedrin was called in and here it says, where is the Messiah? Who is he? All that implies.
Right.
So those are just a couple encouragements of ones to listen to. But as always, don't forget to check us out on social media. And thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.
All right, Eric and I are jumping on at the end of this podcast because we don't know if you know how we've slowly been expanding what we do with the context and the color of the Bible. We've obviously have a podcast because you're listening now, but we've both written 2 different workbooks or devotionals, and we thought this would be a good chance just between now and the end of the year to tell you about them in case you're interested. I have written 2 Bible studies for tweens and teens. Ideally, it's for hand it to your children and then look it over and talk about what they read in the Bible. I have one on Proverbs and then one on Leviticus, because after doing my podcast on Leviticus, I'm like, everybody needs to study this book. And so ideally what I would like to see is parents have your teens, your tweens, answer the questions, fill them out, but then it allows for discussion. Let's get a little bit deeper. And especially if you've listened to the Leviticus podcast, you should be able to pull out what you've learned from that, what you've heard from that to help answer and guide your child into those questions.
It could be a whole study for the family.
Yeah, it could be.
Or you could use it for like a Bible study.
Yeah, and I've actually had adults go, can I do it too? I'm like, yeah, you can. I just have to market somebody. So I'm marketing teens and tweens because that's my jam.
Right.
And then Erika has 2 books.
Right. The first one I did is a devotional, 50 days, and then just a short read, the Bible verse and a short read to encourage, challenge. And then the second thing I just finished is a word study where I pick 8 different words in the Hebrew. One, we go a little bit into the Greek as well, and just, I think, explode it with meaning.
Yes.
Explain what exactly does this word mean and how do we apply it to life today. And then I added a section on for further study where I give you Bible verses and questions to go through so you can wrestle with it. And you can do it as an individual. You can do it as a family. You can do it in a Bible study group. So I gave you plenty of options with it. It's just an 8-week study, or you could do it faster than 8 weeks.
One of the comments I did see on your 50-day devotional was it's a meaty devotional. It's not a light. It's not a feel-good light. No good thought for the day. It's really got take some time to consider and ponder.
I wrestled with stuff when I wrote these different devotionals. I, for 10 years, opened up our church service with a quick devotional, like a 5-minute devotional. And it was often taken from my own life experiences. And we went through some hard things in those 10 years. And so I share that, some of the experiences, some of what I learned about God through that time.
Right. But as always, you can find all 4 of these books at our website. But ultimately, the website is going to take you to Amazon.
Right.
So if you're local, you can purchase directly from us. If you're not local, check out Amazon, put our names in, Veronica Copenhaver, Erika Van Heidsma, and you should find a Leviticus, a Proverbs study, 50-day devotional, and Restoring Ancient Words is Erika's newest one.
Yep.
So, and now that Winnie's joined us, we're going to end this little promo.
Bye-bye.